Our next question, Phil Curry.
G'day, Mr Shorten. Phil Curry from the AFL. Two things in your speech I think are related. You talked about the systemic reform required is not just the NDIS but mainstream and community services as well. And then in your conclusion you said the states have to step up. They've clearly been hiving their own services onto the NDIS since you signed this deal. I think the original deal was a 50-50 funding split between the Commonwealth and the states for NDIS, and the Commonwealth would agree to pick up any blowout, and I think you're now on the hook for around 70% if I'm correct for the funding. Is it now time, I think that funding agreement's coming up for revision, are you going to push at a Commonwealth level to rework that agreement, that funding agreement?
I think there's a challenge generally about inclusion. It's not just the states. Some hospitals used to supply cosmetic eyes to little children who were born without an eye. It's a very rare condition. That's now been told by the hospital. The hospital's now said that's an NDIS cost. I spoke to a family of a woman who works 3 days a week. She's a medical scientist doing exactly what you'd ask for someone, but she needs a tube in her throat to feed. The hospital said that's no longer their issue, that's an NDIS issue. So there has been cost shifting. What I've tried to do is demonstrate the goodwill of the NDIS by sorting out the hospital bed block, which is saving states hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's got to be fair go all round. So I found the state disability ministers to be an excellent crew to work with. They're very engaged. It'll be no doubt a subject of discussion at central agencies, Prime Minister, First Ministers, Treasurer, Treasurers. But you can't have it both ways. You can't sort of see a retreat from the provision of community mental health services, for example, and then say, oh, that's all NDIS, when in fact the NDIS isn't looking after everyone with a mental illness. So there's got to be an identification about where the gaps are, an encouragement of states to step up and do more of the disability funding. I think education's a clear area where that's an ongoing challenge. There's also a challenge in terms of the funding formula, and that'll be negotiated through. But I think that a thing like we announced with the Telethon Institute, if we can help with our best evidence and our data, encourage the states to help put a universal screening out for kids who are 12 months old, rather than waiting till developmental delays are identified at 3, what we do then is we create a range of supports. Not every child with a developmental delay at 12 needs to be in the NDIS. It might be that they've got undiagnosed hearing challenges. It could be simpler conditions, frankly, which we've already mastered how we can help that child have the same learning experience. It could be just as simple as putting parents in touch with other parents. The NDIS was never meant to contract out everything else. It was meant to work with everything else, and these are the challenges. There's a lot of goodwill to try it, but we'll do our bit. You know, we'll clamp down on the overcharging, we'll make the agency better. We're going to certainly work in the range of those areas I've tackled.
Thank you.